There are moments in life that do not come to test your strength, but to reveal who you truly are. Moments that do not knock on the door, but break it down, awakening something inside you that you thought you had buried beneath long years of service and discipline. In those moments, the past is no longer a memory, it becomes a weapon. And you realize that some battles are not won by the law alone, but by willpower, by a memory that does not forget, and by a heart that knows when mercy must end. At 5 o'clock in the morning, a continuous pounding echoed on my front door. It was not ordinary knocking. It was frantic, panicked, as if whoever stood outside was running from something far bigger than themselves. My first thought was that my daughter had gone into labor early. She was 9 months pregnant, and everything in the past few days suggested the moment was close. But when the porch light illuminated her face, I felt my heart stop. Her left cheek was swollen, a harsh purple color. Her eyes were puffy from crying, and the marks of violence were so clear they left no room for doubt or denial. She pressed a trembling hand against her ribs, as if every breath she took stabbed her from the inside. She whispered, barely audible, "Mom, Leo hit me." I rushed her inside and closed the door behind us. I tried to appear steady, composed, the way I had learned to be over 20 years as a detective with the Los Angeles Police Department. 20 years of facing the worst things people could do to one another, of standing in interrogation rooms without my voice shaking or my hands trembling. But no training in the world prepares you to see your own daughter broken in front of you. I sat her on the couch, brought her some water, and sat beside her, patting her hand in a futile attempt to calm her. At that moment, her phone rang suddenly. The sound was sharp, like a gunshot. The name was clear on the screen. Leo Hawkins. My body went rigid. I grabbed the phone before she could reach it. Before I could say a word, his voice burst from the speaker, full of arrogance and threat. "Give Emily the phone, and listen carefully. You have no idea who you're dealing with." In that moment, the old feeling returned, the feeling that had followed me for years in basements and interrogation rooms. That internal switch I never imagined I would have to flip again. I said with terrifying calm, "You're speaking to her mother, and I know men like you very well. I sent your kind to prison one by one." He laughed mockingly and said, "You're an old woman. Stay out of it." Then he hung up. Emily collapsed into tears, curling into herself as if trying to shield her child with her body. In a broken voice, she said, "Mom." He lost control. I told him I wanted to stay at the hospital because I felt heavy pressure on the baby. He said I was lying. Then he pushed me toward the stairs. I ran when he stepped away for a few seconds. I reached for my phone to call the police, but she grabbed my wrist with unexpected strength. "No, you can't. Leo says he has connections, and that the police won't touch him." I looked into her eyes and recognized that fear, the same fear I had seen hundreds of times in the faces of past victims, the fear created by men who believe themselves untouchable, men who live by intimidation and control until they face the truth. I carefully checked her ribs. The bruises were forming clearly, painfully visible. She groaned, and I said, in a tone that allowed no argument, "We're going to the emergency room now, and after that, I'll take care of everything." I helped her to the car and carefully opened the passenger door for her. Before I got in myself, something caught my eye and made my entire body stiffen. At the corner of the street, there was a dark, black car. The engine was running, the lights were off, and the windows were tinted. He was watching. He wasn't hiding from the police. He was watching me. I closed the car door with deliberate calm, the kind of calm that comes just before the storm. I sat behind the wheel and looked into the side mirror. The black car was still there, motionless, waiting. I drove toward the hospital, choosing winding side streets. After more than one turn, I was certain. The car was following us. We arrived at the emergency room. Doctors, nurses, harsh white light, rapid questions. I handed my daughter over to them and stayed close. The examination showed the baby was fine, but she had a hairline fracture in one rib and bruises that could not be explained by any accidental fall. The doctor said seriously, "We need to notify the police." I replied calmly, "The police will be notified, but at the right time." I went out to the parking lot. Dawn had begun to break, and the black car was gone. But my phone vibrated in my hand. An unknown number. I answered. He spoke calmly this time, far more dangerous than his earlier threats. "You're acting smart, but you're interfering in something that doesn't concern you." I said, "Hitting a pregnant woman concerns everyone." There was a brief silence. Then he said, "If you open your mouth, you'll never see your grandchild." I hung up without responding. The call recording was already running automatically. The threat was documented. That night, I opened a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Old files, names the city had forgotten, but that had never forgotten themselves. I began connecting the dots. Leo Hawkins was not the man he thought he was. His financial history was full of holes. His company was nothing but a front. His former partner had disappeared under suspicious circumstances. I called old colleagues. I didn't ask for favors. I offered information. Only 2 days later, the police raided Leo's apartment. He wasn't there, but they found enough to bring him down. Recorded threats, forged documents, and most importantly, security camera footage showing him pushing Emily toward the stairs. An arrest warrant was issued immediately. Days later, as I was leaving the hospital with my daughter, I received the news that he had been arrested at the border. I looked at Emily, at her swollen belly, at the small life that had survived despite everything, and I understood one undeniable truth. Leo Hawkins had no idea that this mother was not just a retired police officer, but a woman who had spent half her life taking down men who used fear as a weapon. This time, it was not an ordinary case. It was my daughter, and he had just made the worst mistake of his life.